Hi, it's time to learn about El Niños. How does the warm water affect the weather? Warm water evaporates faster than cool water does. Where the ocean is warm, clouds form and bring rain. In most years, the wind pattern pushes the warm water to the west. As a result, Australia gets rain, and South America and the west coast of North America have dry weather. During an El Niño, however, the weather pattern reverses, and Australia becomes very dry. An El Niño is a temporary change in the climate of the Pacific Ocean in the region around the equator. You can see its effects in both the ocean and atmosphere, generally in the northern hemisphere winter. Typically, the ocean surface warms up by a few degrees. At the same time, the place where hefty thunderstorms occur on the equator moves eastward. Although this might seem like not a big deal, it nevertheless has big effects on the world's climate. What causes it? Good question. Usually, the wind blows strongly from east to west along the equator in the Pacific. This actually piles up water in the western part of the Pacific. In the eastern part, deep water gets pulled up from below and replaces the water that's been pushed out. So the normal situation is warm waters in the west and cold is in the east. In an El Niño, the wind pushing the water around gets weaker. As a result, some of the water piled up in the west slumps back down to the east, and not as much cold water gets pulled up from below. Both these tend to make the water in the eastern Pacific warmer, which is one of the hallmarks of an El Niño. But it doesn't stop there. The warmer ocean then affects the winds, and it makes the winds get weaker. So if the winds get weaker, then the ocean gets warmer, then that makes the winds get weaker again, and then the ocean gets even warmer. This is called positive feedback, and it's what makes an El Niño grow. You're wondering what effect it has. Good question. A strong El Niño is often associated with wet winters over the southeastern U.S., as well as drought in Indonesia and Australia. Keep in mind that you aren't guaranteed these effects, even though there's an El Niño going on. But the El Niño does make these effects more likely to happen. So let's do an experiment. You're probably wondering now why you're looking at two bowls of water. Well, the big one is full of warm water, and the little one is full of cold water. As we discussed, an El Niño has lots of warm water that stays on top of the cold water, and the cold water does not get dispersed because the winds aren't there to push the warm water away. So let's see what happens in my kitchen when we put the cold water in the bottom of the warm water. The cold water is in the smaller bowl, and I colored it blue so that you can see if it's going to disperse or if it's going to sink to the bottom. It should sink to the bottom because I don't have winds in my kitchen to move the warm water off. I'm using my tongs because the warm water is very warm and the cold water is very cold. So let's push that right in there and see what happens. Let's see. Let's take a look. Some of it came out, but most of it, if you take a good look, it's still much darker blue in the small bowl, which means that the cold water is for the most part staying in the small bowl. That is known as the El Niño effect. I hope you liked today's experiment, and I'll see you all soon.